Shabbat shalom, family. Shabbat shalom, family. I hope everybody is doing well. I hope you are having a wonderful Shabbat. Sorry for the delay. So, we're going to talk about Alligator Alcatraz, and it is closing. In fact, they're taking it apart as I speak. What a waste. Now, these folks complain if they have to pay us reparations. They don't want their taxpayer money going towards our reparations, right? Alligator Alcatraz went up, what, about 2 months ago? And they spent $218 million just for something to be around for 2 months. And now it's being dismantled. You could have given us that money as a down payment towards our reparations. What a waste. Now that's wasting taxpayer money right there. But I bet the same people that complain about our reparations, they won't say a word about all these millions of dollars going down the drain, setting up something called Alligator Alcatraz, and how wicked is that? Knowing that alligators, this is what they weaponized against our babies so they could have leather goods and catch alligators with our infants. Okay. But like the Most High say, you going to get it all back too. And double. Your children going to end up that way too. Everything you did to us is going to happen to you, plus double. So, y'all, let's get to it, But I just love how $218 million, y'all. And once this thing is completely dismantled, they won't have nothing to show for it. They already got the people out. They were already bussed out. The ones they were holding there in that facility, they have been bussed out. So it's empty. And now they're just taking everything apart. I mean, come on. This was ridiculous. First of all, I didn't think it was a good idea anyway. You already got prisons up. You could have put those people in one of the detention centers that are already existing, or prison facility that's already existing. You didn't have to build some extra place off somewhere. It was really whole idea and concept was stupid anyway. That's why it didn't last. Okay, let me share my screen so we can get started. All right, y'all, please give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Give me a 1 if you can see my screen. Thank you.
Looks like it's a dark day for Donald Trump and his prized Alligator Alcatraz, because a federal judge ruled that it needs to shut down in 60 days and will receive no new detainees. And saying it needs to shut down is kind of misleading a little bit. It's more like things will be done where it cannot stay open and operate. In her 82-page ruling, Judge Kathleen Williams said that they can receive no more immigrants to the detention center built on an airstrip at the edge of Big Cypress National Preserve. She also told the state to remove all generators, gas, sewage, lighting, fencing, and other waste items over the next 9 weeks that help transform the airstrip into a detention center. Basically, without those things, it can't be open. And this is all because of the environmental impact, and because the tribe, the Miccosukee Tribe, I believe specifically, does not want it there because they don't want anything in the Everglades damaging it, and they're right. Unfortunately, this doesn't mean that the people who are being held there will be let go. They'll just be sent somewhere else, but hopefully somewhere else that at least has more humane conditions, because sticking you out in a swamp surrounded by alligators and making that like a thing, like, well, if someone tries to escape, you're going to get eaten, is fucking gross. And I'm glad this place is going to be shut down. DeSantis is appealing it. I'm sure he got up this morning and had a temper tantrum in his pointy high lift boots. So he's going to try and get around this. But for now, that place has its days numbered.
Alligator Alcatraz is being disassembled. What a waste of taxpayers' money. Could have used something for the poor.
Well, well, well. It's Friday, baby, so you know what that means. It's time for some FAFO tea. Yes, we do love a good fuck around and find out Friday. There's always something in the brew when it comes to the Red Hat crew, and we're going to talk about two. Yes, dear, I have two FAFOs for this video. The first FAFO is to the Kitten Hill Ho. Yes, old Kitten Hill's Rhonda DeSantis, baby. He's going to have to dismantle Alligator Alcatraz expeditiously. They did not win that court case, friend. Donald's knockout has got to go. So there's a FAFO for the Kitten Hill Ho, but there's also a FAFO at play today for all of those who ran out expeditiously to buy themselves a little bit of Alligator Alcatraz merch. You wasted your money on that fucking perch. Now on to the next FAFO in the brew. Oh, wait, let me back up just a bit because I want to drop some knowledgeable tea on you. For 3 weeks, they have been quietly removing the detainees at Alligator Alcatraz to somewhere else, baby. And for those in Florida today that are upset about Rhonda DeSantis taking $450 million out of your FEMA fund to build Alligator Alcatraz, hun, he's coming for some more. He's got to refurbish a shutdown prison in Florida to use as a detention center. So, I don't know if you've heard the news lately about FEMA, dear. People are walking out the door. And now Rhonda DeSantis is asking for more of your state's money to refurbish a prison. Okay, now on to the next cup of tea, the next cup of FAFO, baby. Do you remember Miss Jody Ernst? Yes, the one that came out to say that people die anyway at that town hall when her constituents were so concerned about their Medicaid going away. Yes, she said people die anyway. And then she backed it up and decided to film a video via the way of a cemetery where she was snotty as she could be. Well, as of today, Miss Ernst has decided she no longer wants to play. She will not be running for re-election, friend. Turns out she found out expeditiously her fucking around with her mouth, baby. The people came out and they got fucking loud and they started to shout. So she pulled her name out of the hat. Imagine that. Fuck around, find out. That's how it goes down when you play with the orange clown. Happy Friday, baby.
Huge news coming out of the Florida Everglades. The Alligator Alcatraz, the detention center, is being shut down. Here's why. Built in just 8 days, this facility opened on July 1st, 2025, at a remote airstrip in the Everglades. It was meant to hold up to 5,000 detainees, but faced immediate criticism for poor conditions and lack of legal access for the people held there. Legal challenges from environmental groups and the Miccosukee Tribe led to a federal judge ruling that the facility must close by late October. The judge cited violations of environmental laws and detainee rights. State officials have begun transferring detainees to other facilities, with reports indicating the center will be emptied within days. Opponents of the facility hailed the ruling as a victory for both human rights and environmental protection. Following the court's order, the state is required to dismantle infrastructure like fencing, generators, industrial lighting, and so on, ceasing all operations. Being a photojournalist / camerawoman for a local Miami station and covering this when it first started, this has been a pretty interesting stretch of time of seeing this develop. If you want more big updates on this subject, give me a follow, but I will also be covering other stories as I able because my job takes a lot of my time, as well as behind the scenes working in this very crazy field. Anyways, take care and be safe.
Here's everything that happened while you were asleep. The concentration camp dubbed Alligator Alcatraz may be completely shut down within a few days after a federal judge ruled that it must shut down. So prosecutors in D.C. failed to secure an indictment against the man accused of throwing a sandwich at a Border Patrol agent in Washington, D.C. In a major shift because of the firing and departure of more than 100 immigration judges. Temporary immigration judges will no longer need to have experience in immigration law. A jury has awarded at least $2.2 million to someone who was shot in the face with a less lethal munition by an LA sheriff's deputy during a demonstration during the George Floyd rebellion in 2020. All 14 children injured in yesterday's mass shooting in Minneapolis are expected to survive. A whistleblower complaint says that DOGE uploaded all of our social security numbers to an unsecured server. A judge blocked the Trump administration from deporting Kilmar Abrego Garcia until at least October. Susan Menores is out as the CDC director after less than a month. U.S. officials approved Pfizer's updated COVID-19 shot, but there's going to be so many limitations for many adults and children. And that's everything that happened while we were asleep.
She said now internal emails show that DeSantis will comply with the judge's order to shut down Alligator Alcatraz, and we need to thank the Miccosukee Tribe and environmental groups for this. Last Thursday, a judge ruled that the DeSantis administration needs to halt further construction activities at the immigration center, prohibits adding any more people to the facility, and that they need to remove all fencing, generators, sunbelt lighting, sewage, and other waste and waste receptacles within 60 days. And the judge, Judge Williams, also ordered the government to take down temporary fencing that had limited access for Miccosukee Tribal members, giving them back the freedom to move around freely. The Miccosukee Tribe and environmental groups are the ones who brought the lawsuit, saying that Alligator Alcatraz had reversed billions of dollars spent over decades on environmental restoration. So thank you to the environmental groups and the Miccosukee Tribes for getting this place shut down. In response to the court order, Ron DeSantis initially acted like he was not going to follow the orders and not shut down Alligator Alcatraz. But now internal emails show that they will likely be down to 0 individuals within a few days. However, DeSantis is now bragging about opening up another facility that they're dubbing Deportation Depot. The plans for Deportation Depot is to reopen the shut down Baker County Detention Center, which was closed for abuses, including excessive use of force, extreme medical neglect, racist harassment, retaliation, voyeurism, impediment to access to legal counsel, and lack of adequate hygiene and food. And there were also reports of physical abuse. And it wasn't just the detainees, guards at this facility were also mistreated. All those abuses happened while that detention center was being run by the Baker County Sheriff's Office. And it seems like this Deportation Depot will be run by the same sheriff's office. But while I am glad that Alligator Alcatraz is closing down, it seems like they're just substituting one nightmare for another. That's why it's important to remember that Alligator Alcatraz is being shut down because of environmental rights violations, not human right abuse, which suggests that human rights violation will continue in Florida as long as they're eco-friendly. There's still very much developing stories, so I'll continue bringing information as it comes in. And as always, please consider supporting me on here so I can continue bringing you stories like these.
Alligator Auschwitz is officially closed. There are no more detainees there. And for those of you who don't know, let me give you a little brief backstory. So essentially, Ron DeSantis took it upon himself to build a $250 million concentration camp in the middle of the Everglades. He did this in like 8 days. He did no environmental regulation checks. He did no environmental impact studies. He just built the thing. There's no access to water. So they were trucking in and out human feces and out 8,000-pound tanks of water. Obviously, a Native American tribe sued and said, hey, this is the craziest thing we've ever heard. And the federal judge agreed. And the federal judge said you have to shut down the generators right now and everybody's got to be gone within 60 days. But without generators, even the worst regimes can't keep people there. So everybody's now gone. And I have a few questions that we would like to get answers to. 1, where have the detainees been sent to? 2, are we going to do a study of the damage done in the short amount of time that the concentration camp was open? And 3rd, and most importantly, who got that $250 million? Where is it? That's a tremendous amount of grift. And, an 8-day building project, been open for less than 60 days. Where did all that money go? who's got the money, who approved the money going. That's your money. That's why we can't have park rangers, because we had to pay for a concentration camp in the Everglades that was open for less than 60 days.
There's a lot going on with ICE and immigration right now, so let's just get right into it. In a little bit of good news, Florida's Alligator Alcatraz detention facility is going to be empty within a few days. In a ruling issued last week, U.S. District Judge Kathleen Williams ordered Florida and the Trump administration to stop bringing new detainees to the facility and to wind down operations there within 60 days. The judge issued the preliminary injunction in response to a lawsuit filed by 2 environmental groups and the Miccosukee Tribe. In a declaration filed in the case last week, U.S. Representative Maxwell Frost said that on a tour, he was told the current population was between 300 and 350. On a whiteboard listing the number of detainees at the time of his tour, he said 336 was written. So this is a win. This abomination, this violation of human rights facility, this $45 million waste of Florida taxpayers' money is being shut down. But the real question is, where did all those detainees go? Oh, also, sorry, Florida, my $45 million estimate was a little bit off. Florida may lose $218 million on empty Alligator Alcatraz as judge orders shutdown. Shutting down the facility for the time being would cost the state $15 million to $20 million immediately, and it would cost another $15 million to $20 million to reinstall structures if Florida is allowed to reopen it, according to court filings by the state. So this was just a huge waste of time and money. They brutalized and violated people's basic human rights at the expense of $130 million. They stole land, tribal land, to build a torture center. But like I said, we don't know where those people are going. And in a bad news update for ICE and immigration, an army base used for World War II Japanese internment will be the nation's largest ICE detention center. Stewards of Japanese American history are calling out the use of Fort Bliss to detain immigrants. At the cost of $1.2 billion, the camp has the capacity to detain 5,000 people. Roughly 1,000 men were being held there in mid-August, according to U.S. Representative Veronica Escobar, an El Paso Democrat whose district includes Fort Bliss. Tricia McLaughlin, Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security, called comparisons between detention centers for people in the country illegally and World War II internment camps deranged and lazy. No, Tricia, you are deranged and lazy. It was scare tactics back then that put these people in these internment camps, and it is scare tactics now. Oh, and also the Alien and Enemies Act, which Trump invoked. ICE is also now stopping firefighters on their way to fight fires to check their papers. This firefighter in Washington got a video of the incident.
Yeah, we got 4 by ICE. Fucking crazy, dude. We got members from the tribe of Umatilla, Cayuse, and Walla Walla. This is fucking crazy, man. Look at that. Post it up. We have a different crew over here. Talk to the bosses. And I guess La Migra. This is fucking crazy. They're discussing about fraud hours.
And apparently 2 Oregon firefighters have been taken by ICE and disappeared. Because, you know, the first thing I'm wondering when firefighters are out there in the woods saving people's property and saving lives is, do they have their paperwork in order? And here's Timu Goebbels himself, Stephen Miller, reposting a Homeland Security post that says, "Train America's heroes," and it's some guy with a giant gun behind a cop car. He's saying, calling on all Americans with law enforcement experience to join our elite training center and get an immediate signing bonus. I highly doubt it's elite, considering Dean Cain was able to pass, and he looked like this.
And so this time, Dean Cain isn't flying there. He's going through that obstacle course and training to be an honorary ICE agent. He was working hard out there, and this is exactly what those recruits will do as they're picked one by one, and they're at the federal law.
Yeah, real elite, they're crawling through a child's playground. And this last clip I want to show you is pretty hard to watch because ICE is continuing to go to immigration hearings, and they are arresting people who are doing it correctly. They are arresting people who are following the law, and they are physically assaulting children. Yeah, masked dudes in t-shirts and hoodies and baseball caps are ripping children from their father's arms at immigration court. This man is doing it correctly. They don't care. These people are straight up evil, and Trisha McLaughlin might think it's lazy and deranged to compare what's happening now to what happened to the Japanese in World War II. And these ICE agents get all butthurt when you call them the Gestapo. But if you don't want us making those comparisons, don't open a ICE facility where a Japanese internment camp was. If you don't want us calling you Gestapo, stop acting like the Gestapo. At a certain point, they're just going to accept it that that's what they are. But until then, they're going to try and continue to gaslight the country into believing that what they're doing is legal and somehow a benefit to Americans. But it is neither of those things. They are completely ignoring the Constitution. They are ignoring due process, which is a guaranteed right to everyone on American soil, not just citizens. And they are quite literally standing in the way of people fighting fires. Like, every minute is precious in a firefighting situation, and they are demanding people's papers and disappearing firefighters. Like here in Oregon, we are in the middle of fire season, and it's not as bad as it has been, but we do have fires raging. And the last thing we need are pudgy little ICE goons in their masks pulling firefighters over asking for their papers. Like the guy said in that video, this is fucking insane.
After the state of Florida signed a $245 million contract to set up and run Alligator Alcatraz, there's now word that pretty soon there may be no one left there. NBC's Laura Strickler is following this story for us. Laura, what's going on? The facility's first detainees just got there on July 3rd.
Yeah, so Chris, as of a few days ago, we knew a federal judge said Alligator Alcatraz had to shut down for environmental reasons. As you know, it's right in the middle of the Everglades. But now a state agency official tells me everyone who was there will be deported. And so here's what happened. Recently, local faith leaders in Florida sent a letter to the Florida agency that runs it, asking for access so they could provide spiritual counseling to the detainees. In response, the head of the Florida agency, Kevin Guthrie, wrote, "We are probably going to be down to 0 individuals within a few days," according to an email obtained by our South Florida station. So today, DHS told us they are complying with the judge's order, moving detainees out, but they also said, quote, "This activist judge's order is yet another attempt to prevent the president from fulfilling the American people's mandate to remove the worst of the worst, including gang members, murderers, pedophiles, rapists from our country. Not to mention, this ruling ignores the fact the land has already been developed for a decade."
Yep. You know, ladies and gentlemen, the detainees actually, they took them out, start taking them out like 3 weeks ago. And now they're just taking apart the facility. And, you know, you saw how they're deporting. Yeah, there were cases even up here in the Northeast where some of these, but see, you know, the fire department, it just reveals right there, they hired illegals to put fires out. But what about hiring the citizens for those positions? You know, and while they were in the middle of putting fires out, they got detained by ICE. So I guess ICE now is targeting these different fire departments around the country. And in my opinion, that fire department job, isn't that like your local government? That should go to the regular citizens. Why are you giving that to illegals? But that's my opinion, y'all. But that's the update on this. That is the update. And like I said, the facility only lasted 2 months. And it wasn't but a few weeks ago, Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, Kristi Noem, they were all taking a tour through it about a month ago. And I did that video and showed the video of them touring the place. And then they were also boasting that there'll be more facilities like Alligator Alcatraz. Well, apparently not, because the judge shut that mess down. And I was reading, the inmates were complaining the toilets weren't working. And they said at night it gets real cold out there in the Everglades, and they would be literally freezing. And the mosquitoes were eating them alive during the day. It would be very hot during the day and very cold at night. And yeah, so that's what the offspring of the slave owners came up with to detain people. You know how these folks are. They're not going to be happy unless they're detaining somebody or locking something up and keeping it in captivity, because this is what they're all about. And if the 3-eye Atlas aliens don't land on Earth, because these folks will try to arrest you and detain you somewhere. These people, that's their pastime. That's what they love. They love detaining. So the aliens come, they'll probably try to lock them up. Talking about, we need an alien Alcatraz. We need an alien Alcatraz. They love things in captivity. Let me tell you, stay off the planet. If you need to do something, do it off of the planet, because these folks will try to detain you. They love locking stuff up. And really, the main ones that should be locked up is them. They're the main ones that should be locked up, but they love locking everything else up other than themselves. And they're really the main ones that should be locked up. The place would be safer if their asses were locked up. Woo, man. So, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and conclude. The Bible study will be coming up at 2:45. And I hope to see you then. If I don't see you, please enjoy the rest of your day. Shabbat Shalom, family.